important role in maintaining biodiversity. Dear friends, we are now in the net positive thematic, who Paul Polman talked about in his famous book just a few months ago. They introduced it. What is a net positive company? Well, it is a company, according to Paul Polman, which can give more than they take. I don't know whether it's utopia or in 2022 to talk about net positive companies. However, maybe nature-based solutions that are the thematic of this panel, are the solution in that direction. In the morning, I visited the official page of the European Union Council on Biodiversity, so I saw some information. 1 million plant species, insect species, and bird species and mammaries are endangered now. On a daily basis, up to 200 species disappear the world over. I would like to share Mr. Bakatselos's thing that says about the threat and our enemy, which is time. And I will start with Mr. Karavellas and share something you said on a social networking platform. After the fire in the core of the forest of Davyas, you said that on the sky we have a black vulture while there's another sitting on the rock. Hope and optimism amid blackness and sadness. Nature resists. I should like to keep this last phrase. Really, I wonder, how long will nature still resist? Now, this post came after several days I spent in Davia. I found myself on a hill. It's up on the antennae. And I did see this. We saw a huge part of the core of the forest of Davia, which was not burned, and it was rescued, it was saved. If I start with this example, with this very particular forest, one can see that nature, the forest, has the power to regenerate, to be reborn, provided that we will help it, or at least let nature run its course. But if I were to unzoom and see things from a bird's eye view, the truth is that the capabilities of regeneration of nature and of maintaining what it wants is really marginal at the time, which makes it very important. All protection measures have been adopted or decided to move forward much faster than they have so far. Time is not an ally. And I believe that the trends we've seen so far are not on our side either. I have a question. Why do we need nature-based solutions when our very planet has the capacity, the skill, the ability to self-regulate and reach a state of equilibrium, of balance? In a nutshell, I would say that because we are running amok. We have, roughly speaking, we have two trends that are moving in entirely wrong directions. We have one trend that has to do with emissions or humans' footprint on the planet, and we have another trend that has to do with biodiversity and the planet's health that goes downwards. So the challenge is to change these trends, the upwards, to turn the frown upside down, as it were. Now, what we have been experiencing in the most painful way the last few years, through floods, through wildfires, through the loss of human life even, is that our relationship with nature, with the ecosystem, is one that is not of luxury. It is a relationship of dependence, that our very survival depends on having a healthy ecosystem around us, on having healthy ecosystems in plural. So this is at the very foundation of any worldview of how we want to evolve as a society, as a form of growth, and so on and so forth. If we do not move forward, adopting solutions that not only implicate or pertain to nature a little, but are based and founded on the very healthy worldview of ecosystems, we're the ones that have the problem. Self-regulation, yes, it can happen at times that will be very, very slow for us to experience. We're the ones in dire need of what we call ecosystem services offered to us by nature. And I believe that this is the predominant feature that we all need to understand before we make our choices. Now, I'm talking to representatives from the business world as well, so I must say that over the past few years and the whole dimension of climate risk, I'm not just talking about business risk, it's climate risk. It's for you a very important part as well, isn't it? It is directly linked to what we're discussing right now. Now, in the 20 years of history of this conference, I think it's the first time that we have a beekeeper with us. Mr. Gousiaris, you came from Karavellas yesterday. Thank you very much for that. And I would like to ask you a question that I know is in the minds of many people. What do bees have to do with biodiversity? Now, these two things are inextricably linked. It is an inextricable link because through pollination, bees for a few million years has been regulating the size of biodiversity to a great extent. If you imagine that 80% of plants are pollinated by bees. You mentioned pollination. Can you say in half a minute what pollination is, how it works? Well, pollination is a great way plants have discovered, have found in order to procreate and with safety. It can happen through the air, with small mammals, using birds. But the more specialized and reliable way for many millions, it's been tested for millions of years, is pollination using insects. Now, bees develop huge populations. They play a dominant role in pollination. I mean, bees receive nectar and pollen from the plants, which is what sustains them. And what they do is they transfer genetic material from plant to plant. It is a relationship, in essence, that philosophically it's very interesting because it is a communication and relationship of two entirely different species, one in the animalia and the other in the plants. It's a mutual relationship, same as with many things. I will get back to this mutual relationship and the results of pollination. Before I ask this question, is there an official definition of nature-based solutions? Yes, well, there are many solutions. I believe the simplest form, what we need to keep in mind is this, that we try to handle and cope with social challenges like, for instance, the quality of water, sufficiency of potable water or sustenance, food, through protective actions, management actions, restoration actions aimed at ecosystems. In other words, when we have nature-based solutions, we are in a condition and in a state that assists, helps biodiversity and humans. I have a question for our audience. Prepare yourselves, brace yourselves rather, I need your lights. Now in Europe one can meet 13,000 different species of plants and herbs. Do you know how many of those we can find in Greece out of those 13,000 different species? Anyone? Any takers? Over 50%. 6,800 according to the latest survey of the Agriculturalists Institute in Greece. So what must a country like Greece do in order to have nature-based solutions? Now, first of all, this small poll you made is very interesting because, well, we need to realize that the country, Greece, is one of the countries that is gifted, endowed in Europe with a very rich biodiversity. So the question you raised, what we need to do for these solutions, nature-based solutions to move forward in Greece, is something that we raised in a recent consultation we had with people from public administration and with the scientific world. And combining it with the experience we have for Greece for the past 3 decades, we came up with 3 main challenges. One was that we have a key lack of knowledge, mainly in public administration, as to what these nature-based solutions are, what they mean, how they are designed, planned, and so on and so forth. Second thing is the framework, the institutional framework or the regulatory framework that can allow or may allow or mobilize, motivate, as it were, such solutions more. To give you an example, flood control schemes and plans that do not contain specifications that have such things. The new climate law, which we would like it to have more this nature-based solutions elements embedded in it. And the third challenge is implementation. I mean, these are projects that do have such characteristics. They can work, and they can work as examples, as models. Truth be told, in Greece we have a series of projects that delay for several decades and have been planned and designed with the brains and the mindsets of that prevailed several decades ago. So I believe that these three things, knowledge, institutional framework, and good practical examples, are the key challenges that we need to tackle. Let's go back to pollination, shall we? Will you give us some examples of fruits, vegetables that are pollinated by bees? Well, I'd say most of them. Pears, apples, oranges, well, courgettes. What we ate today outside, the beautiful buffet, the succulent food that was prepared for us. A lot of herbs, alfalfa, for instance, we eat it. Not us, the animals actually, but the chain food is embedded in everywhere in the animal and plants kingdom. This is how important it is. In essence, bees play a huge role there, the most important role in my opinion, because, well, in agricultural environments that are controlled agricultural environments, we can intervene in a way. But in the purely natural environments, all we have is bees. There's nothing else. Which is why it's equally important. In a sense, I could say that farmers control what we eat and whether we eat or not, and apiarists or apiculturalists, the quality of what we eat. This is the change from the industrial evolution to this day. So when Albert Einstein used to say that bees are so important for biodiversity, and when he said that the day the bees disappear from the earth, humanity would have 4 years of life, was it right? Well, I'm afraid it's fake news. What do you mean, sir? Well, Albert Einstein never said this per se, as far as we can tell. Something similar was uttered, but what it does, it shows, and we usually base ourselves on urban legends. This is an urban legend that apiculturalists use it, and they use Einstein's model. Exactly. Well, so if we use this today, that we would say that if bees were to disappear tomorrow, Tuesday morning, in 2 or 2.5 years from that day, we would have a huge host of problems. Difficulties in finding herbs and plants and vegetables and to feed animals and anything, so much less than 4 years. Can you give us some examples of nature-based solutions? So maybe such an example would be our forests, how we manage our forests at the level of prevention, so that we should have done more things to prevent wildfires, the way to predict that we would have more frequent wildfires from now on, how we can reduce the intensity of wildfires through the preventive management of forests, how we can create green spots, green areas in our cities, how we can restore water ecosystems, aquatic ecosystems that in many areas of our country are, well, with illegal buildings on them and other constructions that should never have been erected there. So many such examples that may be win-win, but also have a short-term political cost in order to be put in motion. Now, the work of the organization you represent, the WWF, how is it affected by nature-based solutions? Well, listen, our mandate from our very beginning was to enhance the correlation between man and nature. It may have seemed utopian back then, but now it's realistic. Nature-based solution is something we believe in greatly. It's the time when we must say that we need to move forward with specific projects. Let me give you a couple of examples. On the island of Paros, working with several other agencies, we are creating micro dams, small stone levels that aim at enriching the aquiferous horizon, the aquifer actually. And we may remember Manolis, the late Manolis Glezos started this effort on Naxos, then on Kythera. We're doing this on Paros now. There is huge interest from the islands of Ios and Seriphos. We'll do that there as well. On Chios, we have started another program with many other agencies, an initiative that will allow us to do what we have, this burning, this controlled burning of areas, of forest areas or agricultural areas, not in summer times, but on the basis of a scheme or a study in order to reduce the burning fuel that would reduce the intensity of a wildfire. In Moronis, the nature area of Moronis, that will actually protect this area that would not allow floods to happen. So specific actions that will, if the municipalities believe in them and the prefecture believes in them, to become scaled up and act as examples and models. And we're still trying at the level of policies in order to have these nature-based solutions enter into our politics as well. An active member of the program Vasilotropia, Utilization, Rescue and Improvement of Bee Genetic Material in Thessalia. That's you, Mr. Gousiaris. How does that program activate nature-based solutions? Well, it's fairly simple, I'd say. We took bees biology, we analyzed exactly how the bee deals with the changes in the environment, and we tried through modern apiculture, because today we can't have bees without apiculturists, beekeepers. It is such the situation around us with diseases and climate change that bees cannot cope. It's quite clear. I mean, if someone 20 years ago went on the Mount of Gramos or any other mountain, you would see bee hives and bee nests in the holes of trees. But you can't do that now because bees cannot cope with this speed of the change. They have gone through ice ages, through intense droughts and everything, but the speed and the velocity of this climate change is not something that bees can cope with. So what we want is for bees to still exist. So we went to apiculture and we tried to see what we can do in terms of a beekeeper, what we can do as a beekeeper, or how we can help the beekeeper to become more productive by choosing those beehives that can cope with climate change. It's a fairly technical matter. I couldn't possibly analyze it here before this very esteemed and learned audience. But it is based on a mass selection of genetic material, natural selection. It's not an artificial one, okay? It is a program that is designed. It will be Mr. Goras, the assistant professor, is running it. It is funded by the prefecture of Thessalia. It's new agriculture, new generation. We have the Stavros Niarchos Foundation making a generous donation. It's been running since March. Unfortunately, we delayed slightly in its actions due to COVID. Okay, it's not something that we could do digitally. We had to do this physically, you see. There was a long list of young apiculturalists. 21 were chosen. They received intensive training, and of them, 17 are already out in the 4th regional areas of Thessalia. They come in constant contact with beekeepers. They give them the protocols. It's algorithmic, this. And apiculturists slowly see this they see they're getting a payback. They're more productive because, well, beekeepers are between a rock and a hard place. The trend is for them to abandon production because their bees find it very, very difficult to cope. We have 1 minute. I will give the floor back to you and we can close this session to tell us if there are ways that we, laypersons, the ordinary citizens in our vast majority residents of Athens, if we can help the bees. Is there a way? Well, eat more honey, okay? Greek honey, if possible. So eat honey, plants that are the ones that help the bees, and our apiculturists can let us. A little water is very helpful. Bees are not aggressive. We shouldn't be afraid of bees. Okay, they're only defensive. Okay, that's what they need to do. I'm very optimistic in general. Okay, and this stems from what I do for a living, from apiculture. But I have maths in me as well, so data are always important to me, and I think I will agree with Mr. Karavellas entirely. I mean, we don't have time to spare, we don't have time to waste. We need to do something very precise. And in such cases, I really like a poem. It's by Andreas Empirikos, that is called Transparent Backyards. My eyelids are transparent backyards. When I close them, I see in front of them what I wish for, and when I close them, I see before them what exists. So with realism and vision, there is no other way to deal with this situation. Now, that was the best epilogue. Thank you so very much for being with us.